Hello, England here, and I hope you're all having a good day. Today we're going to be taking a quick, I guess, not look, but we're going to have more of a sort of discussion about this new Commander rework. As a quick sort of TLDR, before we actually get into this, just a sort of quick overrun, is just that this is going to need quite a lot of changes, and it's going to be needed to be tweaked pretty extensively because at the moment, I mean, it is the first day it's been released, but it does look like a lot of these changes have caused quite a few issues in the game. Now, what it's really done is, I guess, a general overview is that basically any sort of battleships that have not got secondaries or do not, well, I say don't have secondaries, most do have secondaries, but any battleships that don't primarily use their secondaries or at least, or have secondary spec builds, they just sit at the back of the map, which is quite bad, and then obviously anything that do actually use their secondaries. So that's going to be some of the German and French battleships, but even they are going to be sitting more at the back more. But it's primarily Germans going in, and that's really just the state of the play as battleships. Aircraft carriers, they don't really seem to be affected at all. Because before making this video, I have played just every single class at the highest tier I've got. Unfortunately, carriers, I don't have a tier 10, so I had to make the best with a tier 8, but that was with the Kagar. And yeah, it really did not seem like much actually changed in terms of that. But yeah, carriers, it really does seem like nothing's really changed with them. If not, they're actually a little bit strong with some of the skills that they provide, so that is gonna make a few people not too happy. And destroy builds, I mean, it depends. Those can. Some of them can be good, but it does seem like a lot of them can be a lot more expensive. And then with the cruisers, it's just quite a lot more has changed. But in general, I think this sort of rework just makes things a lot more expensive. Now, for the actual secondary builds, I mean, there is obviously a little bit of, I guess, a nerf to them because they did still have the reduction, but with the actual sort of secondaries now having a sort of increased base dispersion and the fact that they also shoot a lot further means that they're just generally more enjoyable. And plus, if you haven't got a sort of full commander or captain, I guess, for your ship, then it's actually quite good because it means even though you've not actually started speccing it entirely for secondaries, it means that you still get some of the benefits without needing to go for that. So that I am quite a fan of. But yeah, it's quite good. I've quite enjoyed them, and it really is just quite a big change, and there are definitely going to be some fixes and changes coming pretty soon because it's just the overall state of the game at the moment is pretty bad, and every single game I've gone into, it's just people just saying how bad it is so far. So, I'm guessing this is going to be where Wargame is going to be taking quite a lot of the stats, looking at everything, look at sort of the difference between, say, average over the last year or last half a year, and then compare that with what's sort of going on with the next week or so, and then start making changes based on that, and hopefully make this a bit better. But I don't think it's going to be sort of a quick thing. It is going to be a sort of gradual implementation of these changes. Now, for the battleships as well, I mean, yeah, the accuracy is pretty ridiculous on some of them. So, as you probably know from some of my other videos, I do have the Thunderer. And yeah, I already have a 19-point captain. Unfortunately, I don't have a 21 because obviously that's the 1.2 million that you need, which is pretty expensive. But honestly, with a Thunderer, it doesn't really need those extra two anyway. However, yeah, it's a hell of a lot more accurate. And from what I've heard from other people as well, is that just this additional 10% reduction in your dispersion, it really doesn't help the state of the game because anything that's got long range guns, I mean, it doesn't really matter if they've got good dispersion or bad dispersion because this 10% reduction just makes it a lot easier to play if you're using Deadeye. And yeah, it's just not good. I mean, I was getting some pretty pinpoint shots, it was great to have, but I mean, anything on the receiving end is not going to enjoy it, meaning anyone that tries to push in, at least at the start of the game, so you've got any cruisers that are trying to get in, or any battleships that actually decide, you know what, I don't want to go for that meta, I'm going to go in and try and brawl, you're not going to have a good time because obviously if you're angled in, then people, yeah, they're going to try and hit you with armor piercing, and they could sort of overmatch your bow, or if they're, or if they're using high explosive, then they're going to get a lot of high explosive hits, so it's just generally not going to be a fun experience. So I don't really know where Wargaming is going to go with this, but they definitely have to change it because it's just been a total sort of shift in gameplay here with how this is going, so they're definitely going to have to do something there. And my general thoughts as well, because obviously when I was looking through them before, I could kind of see, yeah, you can have some potential builds here, but now actually going into it, it doesn't seem the best. So, for example, with the Adrenaline Rush, that used to be a 2-point skill universally, and now on the cruisers, And on the battleships, I'm not entirely sure on the destroyers actually. Real quick, let me just have a look. Yep, it does look like the same with the destroyers as well. Is that's going to just be a tier 3 skill now, and that does complicate things somewhat because obviously, yeah, okay, you've got these extra 2 skill points. However, Adrenaline Rush, especially on quite a few builds, is a pretty essential skill. So even though they have given you an additional skill point, it's not really the best because they've immediately taken one away from you again because obviously that was an essential skill. And with how some of them are working, it means you've actually got to take extras if you want to go for builds that would have previously worked. So if you were going for secondaries, you would have also gotten an anti-air buff. That doesn't apply anymore. If you want to go for anti-air and secondaries, you're going to have to take specific skills for both secondaries and for anti-air, meaning that even though you're being given extra skill points, it doesn't necessarily mean you've got more. It just makes you feel like you've got more. Like, oh yeah, I've got a 21-point captain. All it really means is you've got a sort of longer grind. So, I don't know. They are going to have to make quite a few changes here, and it's just generally not the best. But at the end of the day, I mean, as they did say, it does need to be tested on the live server more than a test server because, you know, you get the most realistic results here. But I'm just hoping that they implement the fixes quickly and they can generally make this a sort of easy transition. As I know quite a few people are really not liking the fact they've got to sort of, I guess, rearrange their commanders, which, you know, some people have got hundreds of commanders and people don't really want to be sort of rearranging them, but they're going to have to, unfortunately. So, you know, that's one of the bugbears. But I mean, it's a good thing that you can, at the moment, retrain them for free. So it does give you a lot of, I guess, experimenting time. So you can go, right, that build works, that one doesn't, and then you can just go through your ships. But it is going to be a pretty time-consuming process. Now, with the destroyers, I mean, again, it's well, this affects the battleships as well as the cruisers too. Is the fact of if you've got priority target, you know, again, that was a pretty essential skill. And I mean, yeah, okay, some people don't use priority target, I know that. I mean, I personally do use it quite a lot, and I have recently been trying to not use it as much and just rely more on the fact of, right, I know I'm detected, where are these shots going to possibly come from, or where are these torpedoes going to come from. I did that anyway more with torpedoes because, you know, you have to have an awareness just to better maneuver away from them, but even so, sometimes it is quite good. So if you're getting into an area and all of a sudden you see you're being aimed at by 3-4 people, you realise, oh, I may have pushed a little bit too far, and you can start heading back rather than just, yeah, okay, you got people aiming at you, you don't realise it until they all open fire, and then it's a little bit too late. So I guess it's a good thing because it kind of forces you to get more awareness of the game and your surroundings. I mean, that's probably going to be the effect it has on me because there's already been a few ships I've started to not use this skill on. So, for example, I've just got the Georgia and I'm going to be doing an impressions video of that shortly at some point once I've actually played a good amount of games in it. And, I mean, before these skills actually came in, I didn't take the priority target. Instead, I went for preventive maintenance and was just generally getting used to it like that. But even so, for people that are even newer to the game as well, I mean, it was basically a crutch for me at the start, which was just to use priority target, so it's going to be more expensive. And that right there, just with the Adrenaline Rush and priority target alone, those are 2 skill points which are now taken up by what you get as sort of an additional part here, meaning that it really isn't that much of a good change, and they probably could have just kept it how it was, or instead they could have just modified it a little bit or just made exceptions for certain ships. But hey, at the end of the day, this is what we're getting, and it's pretty certain at this point we're not going to be able to reverse it, so it's just going to be a fact of we're going to have to wait and see what wargaming actually do. In terms of destroyers, I mean, I do actually quite like some of the new skills. So, I mean, for dazzling, that is, you know, I do think that's actually a pretty good skill because, you know, it's like, okay, you get engaged or you accidentally get spotted, you know, you sort of have that moment of panic, oh no, I've been spotted sort of thing. Let's say you accidentally get too close to a ship or a destroyer gets you, you know, you turn around if you don't want to engage and get out there, so it does make it a little bit easier to survive, and plus it makes engagements with the destroyers a little bit easier. Obviously, if you've both got the skill, then it kind of negates each other, but even so, it gives you a better chance of surviving those engagements. But at the same time, it does, you know, some of these are a little bit more expensive, so I've currently got the Benham, and I've had to effectively make the choice between going for the priority target or going for last stand, or say the Swift Fish, which is what I'm going for to get these sort of quicker torpedoes. Because obviously I've currently got the Concealment Expert, which is pretty essential, and at the moment I am debating whether to go between radiolocation or instead to go for Dazzling to see how that goes, or potentially even go for the Swift in Silence because you spend most of your time undetected anyway, meaning it's quite good to maneuver. But at the same time, yeah, I would quite like to have priority target, regardless of, you know, what I just said about, you know, yeah, using it to see how many people are aiming at you. But obviously, when someone's aiming at you, you can better determine when you're getting shot at, because it could be detected. But if no one's aiming at you, then you've got no real need to worry. It's when you see that sort of ping up. So it is still quite an essential skill depending on the class you're playing in. So again, it's a bit different, and it generally seems like it does give you a lot more room, and you can go for different builds, but it's going to take a while to really get used to them. And plus, if they're going to be making quite a few changes, you could be like, yeah, okay, I've got a build, I'm happy with that. Then it's changed. So yeah, I think it's just going to really be a fact of waiting for Wargaming to just go, right, okay, we've got the stats, we're going to make these changes, they're going to be fixed pretty fast, and see how it goes, and then just go through the iterations of changes until we get a system that we're quite happy with. Now, I don't really want to keep you for too much longer, because I mean, it's already been about 10 minutes or so, and I'm sure there's quite a few other people that have got sort of, I guess, similar impressions, or generally they've got just other impressions, and it's just going to be another person talking about how much they don't like the rework. But I mean, that's really it from me. So I guess we'll just really have to wait and see to what actually happens with this, and just hope Wargaming handles it well and we get a nice rework here. I mean, I do like it. There are quite a few useful skills now, and there's definitely going to be a lot more room for, I guess, different builds and stuff, but we will still have to see how it pans out. So that is it for me. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, then make sure to leave a like, and if you're new here, then possibly consider subscribing, as the channel started growing quite fast, so it'd be quite nice to possibly hit 150 to 200 subscribers. And that's it from me. So thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.